every local person up here that I know of would call it the K Cave because K. Tollett had this property. So this was the K Cave, K-A-Y, right? Was the way K. Tollett spelled his name? Who's the Tolletts in here? Raise your hands if you're Tollett. They didn't come.
This gentleman probably.
Well, but above this, on the USGS topo, Devil Step Hollow is a little watershed just above here. And when this cave was being named in the 1950s by a professor at Tennessee Tech who wrote Caves of Tennessee, Barr was his name, he just created a name for it. Devil Step Hollow Cave, because Devil Step Hollow was the closest name on the map, the USGS topo map. Now, we kept that name. He gets to be the official namer of our cave, Dr. Tom Barr. Now, this cave has tremendous significance in Tennessee for the reason that inside this cave, if you were to belly crawl in there, which many people in this valley have done, I have many times led people from Cumberland Mountain State Park in here. You know, we would make a few trips a month down here to go into this cave because we could show inside some very special things. Now, from the outside, it's pretty special. You see that water right there? That water seeped through here from Grassy Cove for the most part. It's been worried about and thought of, and then the water sinks right here, and it comes out in two locations in particular. One is just to the right. I'm pointing right where it would come out. If there were no leaves on the trees, you'd see a little river drain right over there. Now that is the storm overflow. The main flow is coming out right at the cave behind our office, the head of Sequatchie Cave.
Is this where the artifacts is?
This is where the artifacts are. Many of them have been looted, you know, and are in private ownership. But what's in here still, and I had an old fella tell me just a little while ago, talking with Mr. Sherrill, Mr. Cagle, how his father brought him in here. Now, Mr. Cagle was born what year? Do you remember, Chuck?
Said he was 87.
He's 87. His daddy took him in there and he showed him the drawings. See, it's drawings here that are the biggest part of the story, and that's why we were bringing the people, to crawl into the cave and see the Falcon Warrior image. Now, the Falcon Warrior is a really special kind of icon in the period of the native people who were here, like from 1100 to about 1500 AD in particular. They created the mounds. They created a very sophisticated culture that was a real takeoff from the Mesoamerican culture, from the Aztecs, you know, in particular. With the Aztecs had huge mounds. They had huge figures, and all of their symbolism, you know, much of it's mysterious, but they did some writing, so it's been deciphered. You know, you can figure out what some of it is because they've kind of broken the code on some of that stuff. We don't have that virtue of people in North America having a written language, but they did use imagery and symbolism. And so I told Chuck, you know, when we would take folks through there, I would take my seasonal naturalist to teach them how to bring people to look at this stuff. You know, we would see the Falcon Warrior, and this is a figure of a winged man with a beak, with two big flint pieces in his hands, you know, that are maces or knives. You know, it's hard to know. And then one of the wings out here, it turns into hair under here. It's and a face instead of feathers. This is hair for a face, and out of the face is coming a mace. So the face is a weaponized, you know, with the mace, and then on the other side there's another kind of weird image like that. So very complicated. But if you go to the Aztecs, you're going to find his father. That's the Eagle Warrior. The Eagle Warrior, he was just a relentless terminator, killer. He was bad. And this guy, you know, he's got these two little things and mace coming out of the mouth or what. Well, he is also shown throughout our region in a few other places. I mean, not everywhere, but this is a glyph that you can follow. This symbolism you can follow. And down in North Georgia is one of his depictions. And there he's got that same big flint piece in one hand. His other hand's down here, but it's just got a severed head, you know. So, yeah, he was the son of the Eagle Warrior. He was also a relentless.
Are these stone sculptures?
These are drawings with, yes, all three kinds of drawings here. There's pigment drawings, there's drawings with charcoal, and there's mud drawings. Oh. So all three forms of glyphs that you find scattered in different caves, all three media were used in this cave.
Did you ever get pictures of them?
Well, I mean, I took pictures of a few of the Falcon Warrior, certainly. But as I told Chuck, we would see that, and there was one other little image that we could see, and then when Dr. Charles Faulkner, who was a historic archaeologist at UT, when he went in, he maybe had a few students with him. He was a good guy, you know. He helped us in state parks a little bit, but he went in there. And when he came out, there was like, you know, 15 glyphs. We had, our eyes never even saw them.
Wow.
But going back in, you could see them so, you know, very plainly. The most dramatic to me were this pair of pileated woodpeckers. Drawn, you know, flying together in flight. There's big beaks and big old crests. And what did that mean? We don't know.
Sorry.
Another kind of glyph that was very realistic were, you know, this enormous fish on the wall. You know, a lot of realism. And then some of the other more abstract things were in there as well. But the cave, and we recognized this when we were going there, the walls were just dabbed with little pieces of black charcoal. And what those were from were cane torches. And, you know, folks who try to reenact primitive life and all that, they've been able to figure out how to use an atlatl really well. That's with a throwing stick, you know, and other kind of primitive technology. None of them have ever been able to perfect the cane torch. Whatever that technology was that allowed those people to have pieces of cane and stay in there for hours just tapping off the end of it, you know, daubing that end. That's why the charcoal's little stobs are all over the walls.
They say it looks like a lot of daylight in there when you get back in there. Is that
no, that's not true.
Oh.
That is not. Now, when you get down in there, just at the bottom here, the light coming in, of course, is this brilliant experience, you know, because you're in this big funnel with the sky greened up with trees, and it may have been like that in Mississippian times, or maybe they cut them all down. I don't know. They had some flint axes, but they'd have had their hands full when they tried to chop them down.
Well, that was what I was going to ask. Two things. One, how did they see deeper in? I suppose
came
with your
torches.
torch. Yeah.
That was it.
And then is it because they were like burned on, the charcoal was kind of burned onto the wall that it stays?
No,
Or the mud, how it stays?
Well, charcoal is, cane charcoal is evidently a pretty enduring thing. Carbon just doesn't deteriorate. Carbon doesn't get attacked by fungus. You can't live on it, you know. Mold, mildew can't come down and get in it and erase it. And so it's clear they took those torches. You can see very clearly, you know, the diameter of a torch cane. Of course, they can run the DNA on it, match it to river cane now, but they just stick it against the wall evidently, and they must have packed it with some kind of tar. Was it pitch? You know, that's what all the what would those people be called that are trying to do historic technology? Historic technology
Like
experts.
forensics, maybe forensic historians.
That's a good name. That's an honorable name for those
take it.
people that are doing that. They're curious and they're fascinated with the culture, but they hadn't got the torches yet.
That's the durability of carbon. I wonder, is that why they use carbon dating to determine the age of something?
Oh yes, yeah. They have done, you know, extensive carbon dating testing in here, but there are also bones in here. Even when I was taking seasonals, you know, I recall vividly standing by the edge of the bluff on the outside and looking down and seeing something. It was a human tooth, and I just poked it back into the sand. So burials have been dug out from the outside, and there are burials on the inside, but because there are human remains there, we respectfully have closed this as a protected area. And I have only been down there one time in the 20 years that I've been with the Cumberland Trail Project. Before that, when it was under a private owner and we were just asking for permission and I went every chance I could get, you know. I thought it was such a remarkable experience.
How did you get down there?
Well, you walk down here.
Carefully.
Now, Chuck, I'm not telling you this so you can go do that.
I'm not planning on it.
Okay?
I'd never get back up.
You go to the right, and we have a gate there now. We've had a gate installed for almost the full past 20 years. And under there, you immediately start to flatten out, and you're creeping, you know, inch by inch, pulling your way through that silt from the large flooding that, you know, brings that water level way up. You can see on the back of that side how that's just mud in there. That's the water level. This spring was that far back in there. And that is a beautiful time to be here and see this green pool, this eye. Now, for our future, we have received some funding, a very small amount, I would say, from the legislature to start our work on a 3D experience that will be probably in that visitor center. And I don't know what that looks like, but that Steve Alvarez, who has done many, many shoots for National Geographic, he is a top-level photographer, but one of his passions has been petroglyphs, and he's spent a lot of months out west, you know, following the panels there. So they're fantastic out there.
Is the word glyph taken from the word hieroglyphics?
It's in there. Now, do you know anything about the root of the word glyph?
I don't.
I don't either. Certainly it's part of the same thing. These are petroglyphs. And hiero, what does the word hiero mean? If glyph means maybe some writing of some kind.
I think of Hiero in any other.
Maybe Greek writing.
If we could just Google it, we'd have it made.
That's right. There'll be
I
no
have-
Googling out here.
I have a question about this one rock over here. This one right here, look, would that be subject to fall at some point?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
And notice it almost looks like a face. There's your mouth.
Oh, yeah. Beautiful. I see what you're saying.
And up there just to the right of it, above it.
This will continue to crumble. The shattered rocks that you see in the bottom, many of them, of course, are covered up by the vegetation right now. They're all through there.
I can feel cool air emanating from that cave area.
It is remarkable, but the length of the cave that can be seen is relatively short. And one other note that I mentioned to Chuck about my experience, I would train people here in their work in state parks, and so I had a group a couple years that went into here because I wanted to be part of their experience. And there's a big platform back there, natural flat area, and one glyph in there, and then so we would sit in there and talk. And one of the things, these would be young people that are starting out to work a summer in Tennessee state parks, and one of the things that you want to always talk about, is respect and all that, and say people have been in here that have not respected this place. You've seen that amazing piece of work from 500, 600 years ago. And now look up at the ceiling. You see all these little mud balls up there on the ceiling. Like some kids, they didn't have anything better to do than just sling mud around in this place. Well, see, when Dr. Jan Shimmick, who is the great archaeologist interested in this in the state of Tennessee, former president of the University of Tennessee, he was an archaeologist, but he's such a smart guy. When they needed a acting president, they said, Doc Shimmick, would you do this? And he did for 6 years. They didn't want him to leave, and finally said, look, I got to get back to archaeology. I'm gone. I've been here long enough to get my pension, my president's pension. Color me gone. And, well, so he's back on this project. And he's the one that lobbied to get the money, that we'll have to make this model. But as far as those mud balls go, they went up and they looked at one of them, and it had a hole in it, burned through, and in the bottom of it was the stub of a cane torch. And all of them had a hole. And he said this place was lit up like a Christmas tree.
Wow.
Well, didn't they sneak people through? Wasn't this part of?
Thank you.
I've always
Yes,
heard
right. In the Civil War, you're
the
talking
Civil War,
about,
yeah,
right?
They transported them through this cave, didn't
Not through the cave, because the cave does not have an exit point that we've ever found anywhere, but possibly through this part of the valley. The Gravelly Spur Road is over here that does go over into Grassy Cove. I don't know if Linda Lagey would be the person to ask about that.
So I've always heard they rode horses through from Grassy Cove to here, but so that was the big fat fib.
They could have rode horses from Grassy Cove into here on the Gravelly Spur Road.
But not through the cave.
No. Now, caves do collect a lot of lore, you might say, mythology, exaggeration, because they're such mysterious places.
Right.
This one truly has some treasures that we hope that we can protect, for as long as time lasts, as they say. But
Well, that's amazing.
they've been there a long time, and if we have our display here, then you'll be able to, at least experience a little bit what it feels like to be surrounded with that limestone and those drawings, and be able to see the whole set of drawings that were there, probably made at different times and different periods. And I'll say one more thing about this experience. Doc Shimmick, he has to be a little shy or coy about this, you know. I don't know if he's published his masterwork on it or not yet, but he did publish one. May have been criticized for it, where he tried to really break down the Mississippian mind and cosmology. And he suggested that the Sequatchie Valley is such a powerful piece of topography, unparalleled, that, and this is the end of it, right here, right here. So, that this was so powerful of a place, anywhere you came into the valley and you start heading up, this is where you wind up. And so this was the place for probably the young men to come and become the warriors that they needed to be. It was here. So you can put yourself in their shoes or moccasins and think about what was said to them at this point that we're sitting right now and lingering. To say, you are ready to go do this, to go in there and meet who? What? Old Falcon Warriors in there.
Just sitting here, I've been